Alright, YouTube, world, students of VO3. Here we go. This is video number 2 of my playlist, AutoCAD Design. And we're trying something a little bit different on this one. We're using different lighting, different audio, different microphones, pretty much different everything. And I'm trying to shoot this in 2 different video files and then putting them together post-production. So we'll see how that works out and if it changes anything or if it's just too much work. So here we go. We talked about last time, we did the user interface, we talked about where things were, how to use the command line, you know, the difference between drawing to the left and right with selection boxes, the line tool, or really any tool. If you highlight over it, it'll tell you what the command is that, you know, what it does, and also what you could type in to get that. So this you will see in caps down there, it says line, which means that in the command line we could type line. The escape key on the keyboard is going to be like your best friend. I hit that maybe a million times every drawing because that's what gets you out of each tool that you're in. Okay. Let's see the difference between lines and polylines. So a polyline is something that is a continuous line, I guess, all one piece, whereas a line is just a bunch of line segments. So each one is individual. So just because one is a polyline and one is a bunch of line segments doesn't mean that they can't be converted to the other one. So this one, we could use the command called join, and that makes that into 8 objects converted to 1 polyline. So now we have 1 polyline. We could also take the polyline. Notice how I'm using the blue box here. This is a great instance to use that because I didn't want to accidentally get any of the other lines. If I were to go in with a green box and accidentally hit that down there, I don't want that. So I went right in here. This one I could type explode, and that would pull those apart. Sounds a lot cooler than what it really is. Pulls that polyline apart and gives us all different line segments. We could put maybe a couple of them back together. So now we've got 1 polyline and then 3 line segments. It's up to your preference and whatever it is that you're drawing. Okay. So I'm going to do a big green box here, select everything, hit delete on the keyboard. That's the way that I like to erase things. And then I'm going to pan over just to make sure that I got everything. Okay, if you remember, pan is holding in the scroller. So there's a little button in there. So if you click that in and then move your mouse, that would be pan. And the benefit of doing it that way rather than doing it this way is that when you're in a tool and you're trying to do something, let's say I want to draw my next one off screen here. If I go to the pan tool, yes, it will pan, but now I'm stuck in the pan tool. So if I hit escape, it's an added step. That actually looks like they fixed that in 2020, but it is an added step to get back to what you want to do. Whereas if I'm like this, all I have to do is pan over and I just continue drawing. In 2013, it used to be where you'd go to hit escape to get out of pan, and it would actually boot you out of both tools altogether. So that is actually an added feature of 2020. So nice job, Autodesk. They must know that I'm doing this. So alright, let's go into yeah, so we talked about some you know, like we had the drawing tools and all the creation tools, we had the modify tools, but we're going to go into some specific tools in this video altogether. That'll be the second part of what we're doing here, and then the third part is going to be, I'm just going to have you make like a very small assignment, which is what I'm going to make my students do as well. If you don't know, you know, my name is Mr. McGovern, and I'm basically a high school architecture teacher, and my students like to follow my videos. They watch me live, and then they can also watch the YouTube video anytime they want. Even if they forget something 6 months later, they can go back and watch it. So that's why I create these videos, and that's what this channel is for. It's for educational purposes. So I guess that's a good disclaimer right there. This is for educational purposes, which means that this isn't exactly the way that everyone in the world would do something. They may have their own methods or own ideas of, you know, ways that they would like to create and design, but this is the way that I do it. And teaching like this and using the YouTube, you know, to collaborate, I guess, between students is definitely the best way to do it for me. So yeah. So okay, so we're talking about, I want to talk about 4 different tools today. I want to talk about move, I want to talk about copy, I want to talk about trim, and I want to talk about extend. Okay, so move, let's go with that first. Pan your screen around until you see the green and the red together. That's your 0, 0. Okay, and we're going to start, oh, by the way, let's talk about our coordinates real quick. With the line tool, in the last video, video number 1, we talked about how 0, 0 is an absolute coordinate, and that's where it's starting. It's just like a graph. X across, Y up. If X is positive, it goes to the right. If it's negative, it goes to the left. Y is positive, it goes up. Y is negative, it goes down. So if I did, you know, 5, 0, that would go 5 over. And if I go, and by the way, all these units are all inches. 5, 5, That would mean that from 0, and I just scrolled in with the mouse again, that's scrolling in and out, 5 up, you know, and then I'll go 0, 5, and then I'm going to do C enter for close. Okay, so that's my 5 by 5 box that I just created using lines. What I want you to do is I want you to select those, and by the way, you can do this either way. You can select first and then go to move, or you can go to move and it says, hey, what do you want to select? Now we select, hit enter, and then it's going to ask for the base point. I like to make these things into questions for myself, so rather than reading it like specify the base point, I say where would I like to grab this from? Okay, so if I wanted to grab this from any random area, you know, I can grab it from any random spot, but I tell my students any random drawing, any random clicking, any random size, it means nothing to me. It's all very precise. In this major or in this field, everything is precise. It has to be exact. So I say you always got to grab it from somewhere. So select what you have, go to move, click it on one of the corners. Now where do we want to go with this? How far over? Left, right, up, down. So I'm gonna go on the green line here. That's F10. You got to make sure that's turned on. It's called polar. That's your polar line. And I'm just gonna do 12. Okay, so 12 enter is gonna make it go 12 inches across. So I drew a rectangle, or I drew a square using absolute coordinates, and then I moved it over using the polar line. Okay, so now we're going to do the same exact thing, but we're going to use relative coordinates. Okay, so 0, 0 is my starting point, and at 5, 0. This is the same second step as the other one because you're still starting from 0, 0, but the next one will now be different. Rather than typing 5, 5, which would get us up to this point up here, we can't just simply put an at 5, 5 because that's going to count from this point. Relative coordinates, when it has the at, it's saying, hey, from where you currently are, it's going to go 5, 5, which we don't want. We don't want to end out up here. So this would actually be at 0, 5. And then the next one's going to be at 5, 0, although we're going back to the left, so that's going to be a negative. At negative 5, 0, and then you've got 3 options here. We could do C enter for close, we could just simply close it like this, or we can type the final coordinate again, 0, 0. I think I had too many commas in there, so I'll go back in there and just draw that line. Those are object snaps, by the way. That's an endpoint, that's a midpoint. If you had a circle, you could get centers, you can get intersections, you get all kinds of stuff. If you want to change what is showing up while you're drawing, go to OS Enter. And in that menu, which is on my other screen here, you can decide which ones you want to have. So I think we talked about that in the last video also. Alright, so we've got 2 of these. One of them we moved 12 on the polar. This one we are going to move, grab it at the bottom left, and we're going to move it using, we're going to use polar coordinates. So I want to move this thing in a 60-degree angle, but I want to make it 12 inches in that direction. So at 12, angle 60. So take a look at my command line to know how to type that. That means that it's going to be from where that currently is, 60 degrees, and it's going to go 12 inches, something like that. Okay. Sometimes when we're doing polar coordinates, so you're doing at 5, angle 0. Okay, remember the circle. To the right is always 0. Up is always 90, left is always 180, down is always 270, and then back to the right again is either 0 or 360. So important to mention that you don't always know how far you're going to go. So I would say either make your distance further than what you need and then trim it off later, or you could type it like this. I could say, hey, I know I want to go 30 degrees, but I don't know what the at is. So rather than at something, just do angle 30. That's going to have the cursor track at that angle, and then you can say, you know, maybe there's a big circle out here that you're trying to reach. Maybe you just go, you know, here, let's throw that circle in there. And then let's say we're starting here. Now that circle's a size that I don't know, so I don't know how far this has to go, but angle 30, enter. You know, if I'm going to get an intersection here, cool. If not, just draw it out. And now that actually brings us into our next thing that we're going to talk about, which is trimming and extending. But before we do that, let's back up for a second. We did moves, okay, how about copies? Why can't I just do the exact same thing, copy, and take it from this point and maybe even put it back at 0, 0? It's very simple. What do you want to copy? You know, you can select it first and then go to copy, or you can go to copy and it says select objects, select objects. This just requires you to hit enter between it. And then where do you want to grab it from? and then where do you want to go? If you want to, I could slap it onto here, slap it onto there, put it onto the top of this one or that one, or I can type a number at 22, 17, right? Could be anywhere you want. Okay, this is we're just all messing around, so this is nothing special. Okay, although it looks kind of like, no, I'm kidding. All right, so let's get out of that. I'm gonna get rid of this one. You can leave that stuff on your screen if you want. That's up to you. Here's another thing for you, selection boxes. So we either have the blue or green here. Blue is going to be something that's fully inside of it only. Green is going to be something that is partially touching it or fully inside of it. Okay, so in this case I would get 3 different things. But what about if I had something a little bit more specific that I didn't want to accidentally, you know, cover something else? This is not a great example for that, but if you click and hold, it'll make just like your own shape that you want to select with. Okay, so in this case here I could, well, I can't really do that with a green box because that's just going to grab everything, but if I go the other direction, hold on, like that, then you would just get the one. So I'll be honest, I don't usually use that very often. I like to just zoom in. My kids are always working out here like this, and they're like, I can't figure out, and I'm like, dude, zoom in, because we can't see what's happening. Okay, so that actually brings up another point right there. So sometimes when you're drawing, you're starting to pan, and then your stuff's like, whoa, where did it go? Well, you've got this over here. It's called Zoom Extents. So if you click on that, it'll bring everything back right to the center. But even better than that, whether you're too far zoomed out or you're too far zoomed in, okay, I can use this as well. Click, click of the scroller, and that's the same exact thing. That's a zoom and pan. I was acting like this was my camera, but it's not. My camera's up there. That was pretty funny. All right, on to the next thing. I'm tired today. So, trim and extend. This is very simple. There are 2 different trims and extends. Okay, there is the old school trim and the old school extend, and the quick trim and quick extend. Okay, so let's say we have this situation where we have this rectangle. I'm just going to draw any size here, and we have this line like this. Okay, and I want to trim that off. Right. What I do is I go to trim right here. By the way, these are new looking icons for 2020. Very nice. Go to trim. I have to select the boundary that I want to cut it off at. So it's saying select the cutting edges. Basically it just means what boundary. Where do you want to cut it off at? I tell my kids it's like a pair of scissors. Like what is the line that you're going to cut along to have something fly off, right? So that would be this line right here. And to make this even more, I guess, or better explained, I just exploded these, so now these are different lines. All right. So, all right, we're on trim. Select. You can hear my dog in the background chomping on something. Penny. All right, chomp away. All right. So trim. What do you want to trim along? Enter. And then what side do you want to trim off? We could trim this side. We could trim that side. Uh-oh. Coming in. That's pretty easy. Okay. Now the other way to do that would be I just hit Control Z, by the way, to get that back. I type trim, I'm going to hit an additional enter, and that's going to bring me into quick trim. Much easier because now it's just, hey, click what you don't want. Boom. Right? There are reasons why one is faster than the other, and it really depends. So let's stick with what we got here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a copy of this, and I'm going to copy that a couple times going across. Doesn't matter where they are or how many, but I want to show you an example. If I very simply, this is a quick trim that I'm in. So again, that's trim, and then an additional enter. Or if you're gonna be one of those tool clicking people, those people. No, I'm just kidding. Trim, okay, and then one more enter. So now it's a quick trim. So you can go like that to get one place out, or 2 places out, or 3 places out. But if you're looking to do like everything except for like the outside ones or something like that, that's gonna be too long. That's gonna take you too long to do that. All right. So that's too many steps. So in this case, I probably would do a regular trim or an old school trim. That's just trim. Whereas my cutting boundaries, 1, 2, enter. And now it wants to know what sides of those cutting boundaries. Well, I could trim that off. You can see it gives you a little preview of what it's going to do. That or that. I'm going to go with this. So that was a lot faster for some situation like that. Okay. Same exact thing for extending. If I'm going to extend something, let's say I want to extend this one to the next line. I would click the bound. This is the old school extend. Boundary, enter, and then what do you want to extend? Click what half of the line is very critical for what side you click when you're doing extend. If I do the right half here, it's going to go to the right. If I did the left one and there was something there, it would go to the left. So it's very important that you pick the correct half of what you're trying to extend. That way it goes correctly. Alright, so now I'm already maxed out here at this line, so it's done. I can't extend anymore. But if you're in a quick extend, which is an additional enter, click, 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 I can keep going all the way across. So the added benefit there is that I can keep going if I want. Although if you knew initially what you really wanted to do, then maybe the old school one is the better one, because I can say, hey, I want it to go all the way to here, enter. What do you want to go to there? The right side of this line. The left side is not going to do anything unless there was something here. Oh, we were doing old school, sorry. This is my boundary. That actually will not go that way on an old school, so there you go. So that'll go to the right, okay? So that's the difference between those two tools, and that's pretty much 4 different new ones that we talked about here. I think I'm going to try to keep these videos shorter and just focus on specific tools, but I do want to do that quick assignment real quick. So here you go, you're just following what I'm doing. And also, if you're sitting at home thinking like, man, how are they going to learn anything if this teacher just tells them what to do? Well, it's not like that. Right now we're learning things, and eventually they will not be told what to do. It'll be more like, you know, hey, remember that time we did this? Now go do that, and then make your own, and then make another one on top of that. So we don't always give them full direction. We'll give them a lot of the direction in the beginning when we're first learning it, but after that, you know, we got to put them on their own and let them fly on their own, okay, so they make their own stuff. So, all right, here we go. So you're going to do a rectangle, and you're going to do that from 0, 0 to 10, 7. Okay, you're going to zoom out, or you're going to do zoom extents if you need to. You can just erase everything else that was on there, or you can start a new file. Starting a new file was a new. I always do, this is off screen again, I always do AutoCAD. Okay, that's just a template that I always start with for 2D drawings. You're going to go to the line tool, and you're going to start at 2, 2, and then you're going to go to 4, 2, and you're going to go to 4, 4, and you're going to go to 2, 4, and then you're going to go C, enter for close. Okay, that's one. We just drew lines using absolute coordinates. We're now going to take that. Let's make a copy. Copy it, grab it from the top right corner, and you're going to go at 2, angle 90. So what that's going to do is it's going to put it up in the up direction. It's going to leave the original one alone, but it's going to go in the up direction, which is 90 degrees, 2 inches. So now I have 2 stacked on top of each other. And then I'm going to take that, I'm going to move that one, grab it from the midpoint, stay on the green line, and go 3, enter. Now, what had happened here? What happened was, when you go to draw something like this, I have a situation where I have 2 lines right on top of each other, because if you remember, when I made that copy, I just moved it 2 inches up. So if there's 4 lines here and 4 lines there, this is one of the most critical things in this software that's very hard to realize, and a lot of times you make a lot of mistakes doing this. So when I click on this and I hit delete, and there's still one behind it, that means that there are 2 of them there. So how do we get around that? Well, I selected them like this. That means that it's going to grab anything that's fully inside of the blue shape, even if it's behind other lines. Another example would be if I accidentally had a little mistake line like that. Still going to grab all that. It's going to grab the big one and the small one. So we don't want that. We got to be careful. So here's what we do. Instead of doing a selection like this, you're going to want to single click those. You have to pay attention to where those double lines are, because if you don't remember, then you're not going to know. Move, midpoint on the green line, 3, enter. So I left the one alone rather than grabbing them both by accident. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So let's draw something else. Let's go with the line tool. Let's start at 8, 2, and we're going to do a little diamond over here at 1, angle 45 degrees, at 1, angle 135, at 1, angle 225. Ooh, I think I mistyped. At 1, angle 225, and then close. Okay, so those are polar coordinates, right? Let's see. How about something, so object snapping. Why don't we snap from the end of this one to the end of that one, but I don't like how that looks, so we're going to do a quick trim, and we're going to trim off the part in the box. Okay? We're going to do that 2 more times. We're going to go to this corner from that one, and we're going to go to this corner from that one, which is kind of perspective-y looking, which is always fun. If you don't know what perspective is just a style of drawing where your eyes, you're drawing in a way that your eyes actually perceive things. So a box that's getting further away from you, that's getting smaller to your eyes, it's not really getting smaller, it just looks like it is. So I just did quick trims on those as well. Okay, that's pretty much it. If you guys can draw something like that and follow those directions, you're on the right path, and you're listening to what I'm saying. If you're getting something that's, you know, nowhere near that, maybe jump back to that first video. But also, I do have my comments open now. They have to like be reviewed or something like that, just because it's educational. I don't want anybody like slamming me as a teacher, and then I'm like, hey pal. So anyways, if you have any questions, just leave like some kind of comment or something. And of course, like, please like the videos, subscribe. You know, tell your friend in Indiana what we're doing, and have them subscribe too, because I would love to teach across the world. So as many people as I can reach would be great. I think we're at about 500 subscribers right now, and I say we because I think this is an effort between me and my students. A lot of my students, they're like, oh, do workout videos, you know, and I'm like, no, I'm not in really good shape right now. So but yeah, this is like a collaborative thing, and we're trying to, I think they're excited about, they always, you're at 400 subscribers, you know, they're very excited about that. So you know, tell people, have people subscribe. Even if it's not something that you're interested in, it's some cool stuff to see, and who knows, maybe one day when you own your house, or you already own your house and you want to put an addition on it, maybe you learn the software and do it yourself through the town instead of paying $1 billion for an architect to do it. It's up to you. You know, I like money, so. All right, thanks for listening, and I appreciate it. And YouTube world, I will see you guys later. And of course, students, see you tomorrow.